So there is a special feature this year. We have decided to offer you an extra slot of question and answers to tackle the technical question with most like, which might still be there unanswered. And to deal with this, I have a fantastic and courageous set of colleagues for this challenging task. So I would like to ask them to switch on their camera, and so that you can also see them. There is Anne Burrell, there is Fabio Leone, there is Laszlo Bexi. If Gustavo wants to keep and be here with us, I'd really love to have him here too. I know that there is Cesar Siones as well. There I see him. So I think we are approximately complete. Let me just give a little check on the Slido to make sure that it's set correctly. And we'll give it a go. It will be challenging because there are many questions that are unanswered. So let's see how can we do this best. And yeah, that's there are some that are really there and people keep on liking them. So it makes a lot of sense to take the time shortly to answer them. So I'll have the Slido to show there. Yes. And please give me we will just go from the top. If you don't interrupt me and tell me that there is another one that you wish to answer. So there is a question from Justina on co-financing, if that should be only from public state funds and programs, or it could be co-financing by the own resources of applicants and its partners. The straight answer to this is yes. Of course, the only entities that are not allowed to co-finance would be another EU fund. But is any of my colleagues do you want to add something on this? No need, probably. So, all right, then the next one from Ike, the support by the LIFE program falls under the de minimis rule of state aid. Do we have any state aid expert here? Fabio,
not
an expert, but give me your answer.
Again, this is a common question that we receive. There are two kinds of financing coming from Europe: the direct financing, like the programs H2020, LIFE, and so on, and the indirect finances. So those financings that are given to the member state, and then the member state is using them in the country. Those second, the last that I mentioned, do follow under the de minimis rules and the state aid rules, but not LIFE and other programs. They do directly financing beneficiaries and entities, not countries.
Thank you. So next one. Yeah, of course, it was recorded and it will be possible to view it afterwards. I don't know how many of these questions I've already answered. It will be available on the platform that you're using now, but also on the LIFE website and also on our LIFE YouTube channel. So you'll find there everything that you missed if you missed the introduction yesterday. Then the next one is I missed it, but I will retrieve it. So from Michael, and so let me just take 2 seconds to answer the next two, and maybe I will invite Fabio to complement, because these are questions that have been answered in several ways throughout the day. An example of a project, whether that's more climate mitigation or clean energy transition, or sometimes circular economy and quality of life. There was a great reply given by Dan Deckers this morning that actually it is for the applicant to know under which sub-program the question fits best, because you are the only one that know which angle are you taking. And the answer I can add is the fact that under clean energy transition is always mostly brains are not bricks. So if you have such a straightforward division, it could be climate mitigation and adaptation, but really you need to read the call, you know your application, and you know under which sub-programs you would be. Any addition on this? Fabio, you are muted.
sometimes it's simply looking at the output of the project. This is more related to contributing to climate mitigation in terms of reduction of greenhouse gases and CO2, or is it more related to other type of emissions which are falling into the circular economy, particulate matters and other type of pollutants? The answer is often in the output of the project and in a careful reading of the priority of the sub-programs.
Yes, indeed. But Anne, maybe you want to add something?
Yes, thank you, Julia. I just want to say, I mean, in some cases, a project might well be eligible under more than one call, under more than one sub-program. So it's really up to the beneficiary to think both about where it fits best, about where there might be more competition expected, and to make their own decision based on that. But there's not always one right answer.
Yes, thanks, Anne. Then the next one, maybe I'll just take it quickly. So can a project be formed by only one participant that received many letters of commitment from external parties? The answer is obviously yes, it can under the CAP calls, no matter how many letters of commitment, I would say. The most important thing is always that you have the consortium that it fits for the purpose and the objectives of your project. If that can be done by one participant only, why not? Anyone wants to add something on this, or we pass to the next?
I mean, this FAQ is only for SAP projects or also for integrated projects?
Very good point. I mentioned that would be the situation for CAP. So maybe you want to complement for
in the case of a for the case of a strategic project, so strategic integrated projects or nature projects, then the requirement is that it should be at least two, so coordinator and another participant, and also the coordinator should be in principle the entity responsible for the implementation of the plan or strategy that the project targets.
And adding on top for the program CET, there are certain topics which require the participation of at least 3 different participants from different eligible countries.
Exactly. So these are some questions that are coming often about how many countries, how many beneficiaries. But Anne wanted to add something?
Yeah, just also for some of the PLP topics, there are specific requirements, but it's written very clearly in the announcement in the call.
Yes.
Yeah, and also in the section eligibility. Yeah, there is one section eligibility in the call document under, yeah.
Exactly. And if you don't read the call document, you will never be able to be proficient with your application. So that's something for you. And so the next one from Felix, can a proposal cover a single municipality or should there always be a cross-territorial coverage? The answer is again, yes. And it has to be the municipality that it's necessary to meet the objectives of the project. But anyone wants to add something?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, again, it depends. For the standard action projects, that's true. It should have the geographic extent relevant to the project that you're trying to implement. For the strategic projects, there are further requirements about the geographic extent. And again, it's necessary to read the call documents to understand what would be possible and what isn't. But there, for the strategic projects, a single municipality would not be a sufficient extent.
Exactly. Thanks, Anne. I know
that
this
is also, and this is also, and more, and for many projects, more than geographical coverage, also it's related to the impact of the project. No, I mean, so yeah, we are looking for impacts. That's the most important criteria, or the one that is scoring highest in general. So yeah, we look for impacts both during the project implementation and also afterwards. So it's important as well to cover, in this sense, the sustainability and the replication or upscaling potential in your proposal.
Okay, thank you. I have the feeling that we have already answered the one on intellectual property. It was probably Fabio during the CQL.
Indeed.
Yes.
Indeed, I was already answering this. Should I answer again? Well,
Maybe just give it a little go.
intellectual properties are lying with the beneficiaries that they have. So there is no life funded project, and especially in certain priority areas like the CQL, where we have most participants from private companies, it's our own interest to protect the intellectual property rights of certain companies because it's their competitive advantage. And indeed, we only care about the environmental benefits and the output of the project rather than the intellectual property. We are not ownership of their intellectual property.
All right. So let's go for the next one from Paolo. Maybe Jan, you will take it. How the northern coast of Cyprus is considered by the LIFE program.
Yeah, I have to admit, I am not 100% sure of the answer, so I would recommend that Paolo should send us a message to the inquiries box and we can answer on that. However, given that the acquis is suspended in the northern part of Cyprus, I suspect that it would be very difficult to submit an application, but maybe one of my colleagues is more sure of the answer than I am.
Thank you very much.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe just to say that, I mean, there is this in any case in all of the clause, the clause that activities that can be take part outside of the EU member states and there, well, I mean, as long as the activities are necessary for improving the environment, I mean, for achieving the objectives of the project in a member state also, but then it will be okay. But yeah, in any case, better to write. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, then next one. I'm sure we had this also. Sometimes, sometimes they repeat their question because we were not fast enough in admitting them. Co-financing should be only from public state funds program, or it could be co-financed be the own resource of applicants. Of course, that's the one that we had at the beginning before.
Yeah.
The answer is yes. So I wouldn't spend too much time on this one. Luisa Marquez, is it key for projects to align with the priorities of climate adaptation and mitigation goal? Will these priorities be stable for the coming years? That's clearly a leftover from the session on climate. And we don't have any climate colleagues with us. I don't know if some of you would give it a go. Otherwise, I can give a quick answer.
Yeah, I mean, the multi-annual work program goes up through 2024. So
exactly.
If you look at what the multi-annual work program says, that will the elements relevant to the climate adaptation and mitigation sub-program will remain the same up through 2024. For all of the calls and all of the sub-programs, there certainly may be changes from 2025 when we'll have a new multi-annual work program.
Indeed. Cesar,
no, and just regarding the alignment with the priorities, well, I don't know, Fabio, maybe you wanted to say something there.
I mean, the question should be the reverse. I have an idea of a project. Is it aligned? Not aligning the project to the priorities. You have a project, you have an idea, you have to develop something. You need to check if the program fits your needs, not the reverse. Don't do the mistake of trying to squeeze your project or twist your project to fit the LIFE program. It's a recipe to fail the evaluation.
And also maybe to complement that, I mean, that also it doesn't mean that if your project does not fit perfectly with one of the priorities that are defined in the section 2 of the call document, that then automatically you are excluded. No, it's just that you will probably get a little bit maybe less points related to the in the section relevance when we are evaluating your proposal. But I mean, if it is a very good project with very, for example, in this case, big reductions in CO2 emissions and so on, well, I mean, it can be selected without fitting perfectly into one of the specific priorities.
Yes, thanks. Let's see. The next one, it's, well, how can farmers that are cooperating in the knowledge building be rewarded, paid? Very specific. I see Fabio preparing to answer. Are you? No, actually.
I can
Thanks,
react to it. I'm not sure if it's a full answer, but private individuals cannot be partners in a LIFE proposal. But if the farm is incorporated and is actually a business, they could become a partner in a project. Otherwise, I think we see actually quite a lot of LIFE projects where there are stakeholders like farmers involved, where they're trying something out because actually they think that probably it will be beneficial for them. Many LIFE projects develop solutions that are both good for the environment and good for the stakeholders. So I think it depends a little on what the farmer is doing. The farmer, if they are incorporated, could be a partner. It could be also that they're just collaborating because they see benefit in what the project is promoting.
Yes, thank you very much. So there is now a question between nature and climate. So where would a project testing new financial models for nature climate adaptation best fit? On one side, the first answer is always the one that Bernd used this morning, that it really depends on what you want to achieve with this project. But anyone wants to complement? Perhaps Laszlo or Anita? Do you see that happening under nature?
I mean, not unless it fits the priorities that were described in the presentation.
Yeah, and I would say that
yeah, financial model, it would be probably hard to prove the SMART goals and achievements at the end of the or results of the project. So it's yeah, my doubts it would fit under nature, maybe under climate adaptation. I don't know.
Yes, indeed. It's very difficult to give such a reply based on this brief explanation.
Maybe I could come in there. I mean, this is the kind of issue that you might possibly want to discuss with your NCP. I mean, as I think we've said at various points yesterday and today, since we are launching the calls and doing the evaluations, we, SINEA, cannot give advice on individual project ideas, but your national contact points, the NCPs, are able to do this. And perhaps this would be something to approach them and get their opinion on it.
Yes, thank you very much. So, of course, videos probably will be all published by the end of this week together with the presentation on the LIFE website. And here there is a specific question. Let me read it and then we see. So we are setting up a biorefinery based on agro waste. However, as we will be dependent on the import of feedstock from outside the EU, can this be okay? Fabio, Cesar, this?
As I read it with these two lines, I don't see it very okay because I'm missing the benefits. So what the project would bring in terms of benefits to the EU, here I see the impact of reducing the waste somewhere else and using this waste from outside the EU for a certain process inside. If this is the only objective of the project, I cannot see it fitting very well, but maybe this is just one part of it, so I cannot really judge.
Thank you very much, indeed. And then next question. So it is allowed to include tasks to improve and test a prototype from TRL 6 to TRL 8 instead of doing it as a part of a preparatory action. This would be also for some CQL speakers, of Fabio or Cesar.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's allowed to include tasks, yes. So yes, the answer is yes, it's fine. I mean, as long as it contributes to the final objective of the project and the project in the end delivers a certain environmental impact and is in line with what we expect as an innovation or best practice project, depending on what kind of priority it is okay. Yeah.
Thank you. And then the next one, yes, so it's if LIFE project is awarded, so it is awarded to a project that include entities from third countries. Do these entities receive EU LIFE funding? Maybe on.
Yeah,
Yes.
I can take that. According to Article 12 of the LIFE regulation, first of all, the entities from the third countries. Now, maybe first I need to say, I understand here you mean a country that is not participating in LIFE, because if you mean an entity from Iceland, Ukraine, or Moldova, yes, then they receive funding. For another country, in principle, the participant, the partner from another country, may not receive EU financing. They must support it themselves. But I would also add that there are only very limited conditions in which they'd even be accepted in the first place. And that is under the condition that it is essential for the project that they be involved.
Thank you very much, Anne. So next
so the
one.
answer is normally not.
Next one, I would stay with you, Anne, for the TAR, so LIFE Technical Assistance Replication Projects. On the funding and tender portal says, call specific application form is available in submission system, while in the system we find only start an application form.
Yes, you should use the form that you find there. It is indeed rather confusing, and I think you'll find that we have a frequently asked question on this. The form does not specifically say that it's for the replication projects, but it is that standard form you should be using.
Thank you very much. And then
maybe
yes, Cesar, you want to complement?
No, that in any case, I mean, when you start to apply in the system and to create a proposal, when you you will arrive at a stage where you are completing some the A forms, the initial set of forms where you put the participants and so on, and then when you are done with that part, then you come to the other set, which is the part B, the main text, that the application form that you are probably mentioning, and there is a part there in the screen where you download the forms that are applicable to your application, let's say. So, I mean, there should be no possibility of error for you to choose a wrong application form when you are creating your proposal in the system.
Thanks very much, Cesar, for complementing. And let's take the one on the very top. How many percentage of submitted projects succeed when applying for standard action projects? What is the usual average score you need to get funded? Don't know if Fabio or wants to take this one.
This is really linked depending on the specific subprogram that you are targeting. And also within it, if it's a governance or if it's another project. Let's say on average, give you big ranges, unfortunately, because it depends. It's minimum 15%, maximum 40% of the submission are succeeding. Also, it's impossible to tell you now what is the score you need to get funded, because this, depending on the amount available of budget, the quality of the proposal. So this changes every year. It's counterproductive to look at the number to make your mind.
Thank you very much. Okay, I think let's take the next one, because also at the end, talking into percentage, it helps just for the big figures, but it doesn't help your specific application. And I had another question, I don't see where it is, under which subprogram is more strategic to apply to have the better chances. That's not what should guide you in your choice. You should be driven by your project objectives and ideas and your skills, basically.
I would just add, I mean, what you're saying in general is true, Julia, but as I said earlier, Sometimes you will have a project idea that could fit under more than one call.
True.
And there, of course, one of the things you will look at is where you think it's more likely. So I mean, we can already say, for instance, that we know in the Nature and Biodiversity sub-program, for the standard action projects, we always have many more applications than we can finance, and we always end up with a lot of very good projects that we have to put on a reserve list, and then we never have money for them. Whereas, for instance, in the circular economy and quality of life, there's a lower percentage which meet the passing criteria, and therefore of the ones that pass that have a minimum requirement, a higher percentage of them get financed. So yes, each sub-program is different, and that is a factor that people certainly would consider if and only if they have a project that would fit under more than one topic.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And also maybe,
yes,
and you mentioned also before about the getting support from NCPs, but just to clarify, I mean, NCPs is the live national contact points, and you can find their contact data going to the live program website and going to the section contacts, and then well, you will see it. Yeah.
And maybe I also add something on this, because within the EU Life Info Days platform, you have the possibility to get in touch directly with your national contact points. Some of them have already registered there. So you can set up a meeting maybe a little bit more easily than what you would usually do via the normal contacts. And there you will also find experienced life beneficiaries which are looking for partners. And these are people from which you can learn and exchange, and they might become your next partner that know better how to move and navigate the life waters. The next question would be for the circular economy colleagues, and I read it: would awareness raising and knowledge share on ESG, which I guess it could be environmental, social, and governance. It's an environment initiative, fit in the circular economy sub-program?
I mean, for you to check in the priority topics under the circular economy, there is environmental governance. One section is dedicated to awareness raising. As far as I can remember, this is not the target of those topics in specific. They are more looking at specific EU-related type of initiatives and policies, like the Green Deal, like the circular economy action plan, not specifically is ESG. But please check the relevant topic.
Okay, thank you. Anne, I see that there is a question on replication, even if it's the latest one, it's just on the bottom. I think it would be meaningful to take it because we had just a short session. So only prior life projects are eligible for replication funds. Other EU funded projects as well, or even a follow-up to privately funded proof of concept project would be eligible?
Yes. The call and the regulation specify that replication projects may target the replication or upscaling of projects financed by the EU. So it's not exclusively LIFE projects. It may be other EU funded projects. It may not be a privately funded project. I would add, however, that if the idea for the replication project is to follow up on a project funded by another EU program, the objectives still must fit within the scope of LIFE. So it's not picking up, for instance, a project related to objectives for building transport or something, which then can be replicated. Unless the objective is to see how to make transport more environmentally friendly, then yes, of course, but there must be an environmental objective.
Thank you very much. The next one is basically the worst case scenario. So what happens if during the project a worst case happens and for any given reason some of the milestones can't be reached?
I can take that also if you want.
Okay.
I mean, we would obviously this does happen. You know, sometimes things don't work out the way one expects. We would look very closely at what the reason is. If the reason is somehow something which the one or more of the beneficiaries was responsible for, then we would probably end up cutting some of the budget from the project. If, on the other hand, it is something that is completely unpredictable and completely outside of the hands of the beneficiaries, then we may agree to amend the grant agreement to remove or somehow modify those activities. So it really depends on the situation, and it depends what the reason is.
Thank you very much, Anne. And then anyone else wants to comment on this one?
If I may just
Sure.
quickly, especially in the circular economy and especially for those projects that are close to the market, the risk, there is a risk. And it happens that the project, although trying hard, they fail to demonstrate a certain technology, or the technology simply don't work as they would have expected. I mean, if we can see that there is good faith and the project has done the best they could to try to make it a success, but they couldn't, then okay, the project we will account for the cost, and yeah, it's not a successful project. It's still a result.
Thank you very much, Fabio. So let's see next what happens with the next one. Okay, could you give an example for a project on sustainable mobility under climate change mitigation? What would you expect from such project? We don't have climate colleagues with us. I can give you an example because there was an example of a consortium of different universities that implemented bicycling and cycling mobility within the university campuses in their countries. But it's not this example that will help you. What can help you is to have a look at the LIFE project database. We have it there. You find it in the LIFE website. There you can search by keywords. You can restrict to climate change mitigation and standoff projects, and you will find a big series of projects that have been financed so far. Some of them are still ongoing. You can even contact them. So that's where I think you will find really your answer, independently from the 1 or 2 or 3 examples that we could name now. Anyone wants to comment on this or something? Okay, good. So we'll budget. Well, I'll read it. Is it possible to build the budget in which the grant is used as investment and the 40% left is paid by resulted revenues? I think the reply is a big no to Milo Silvestri, but do you see a configuration like this? Fabio, I see you.
I see the theory, unless I understand well. So there is a project, they want to perform a certain activity, we give the 60, and then based on the results of those activities that we finance with 60, that we generate revenues that we'll use as a co-financing. So if this is the case, there is high risk involved. It depends how it is devised in the project. I've seen examples of project coming and asking us, you know, we want the 60%, but we will finance the 40% with the revenues of the project. And then we're going to check, and the revenues actually are expected at the end of the project. So I wonder, how can the project survive if the revenues that would cover the cost, the 40% remaining, is only happening at the end? So it really depends on the way you developed and devise this system, but it's rather risky.
Maybe I can just add, I can recall that there's always a financial viability check done on private beneficiaries, private and non-governmental beneficiaries for LIFE projects. So if the beneficiary or beneficiaries commit at the beginning that they have sufficient resources that they can actually cover the 40%, in case the revenues are not as high as expected, then it might be possible. But I think, as Fabio says, if it's really counting on everything going okay and working completely according to plan, and there aren't other resources available in the entity, then it's very likely that the beneficiary will fail the financial viability check, in fact.
Thank you very much, Anne. That's what I was thinking. Yes, and so we have a question on environmental governance project. So perhaps I will ask it to Fabio. Can environmental governance project address local or regional, not national, water pollution or abstraction problems? Fabio?
Again, this well, they can. Again, you know, the topics are not restrictive, are not mandatory. So you can present projects with a certain output and benefits, which have this setup. But again, go and check if you want to fit exactly to the priorities of life in the circular economy governance part. Please check the priorities there and see if this is something that has been mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, I see, for example, that there is clearly one which is innovative solutions for the reduction of pressures from chemical pollutants in the water, and there's, I mean, there are several. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, just check. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's important to add that, I mean, it does not necessarily need to be a national level problem nor a national level project.
Yeah.
However, if it's a problem that only happens in that place and nowhere else, then the proposal will probably get a low score on replicability, because there's nobody else who would be interested in the results. So I think it doesn't need to be a national level problem, but it should be a problem which actually occurs other places in the EU too.
Thanks, Anne. And regarding the links to apply to the TI replication, what I would like to say, because we cannot post a link right now, but you will find the links in the presentation. And what you need to do is to go in the Funding and Tender portal, the links that we have circulated. There you find all the live calls that are open now, and you will also find the TIR calls. That's a way. The other way is on the live website, there is a call for application page, and there again, we'll list the different calls that we have that we can find back in the Funding and Tender portal. So these are the two ways through, and it's the Funding and Tender portal where you will have the different calls available. Regarding the next one, we still have left of climate change coming. How do you integrate indoor air quality monitoring in the mitigation in the climate change impact? I don't know if any of you wants to answer this. It's very specific. If I would have had the time to reply directly, I would have said that you really need to read the climate action calls, the details, and find out how to do it. Or as we said several times, get in touch with our national contact points. Maybe they have an idea and they can know more about your proposal and know how to help you. There is another question that it's there from Felix. So only renewable energy project related to biogas and biomethane will be considered under this call? That's not the case. There are also others, but really go and look at the topics and you will find out. I think this was asked while one of the speakers was talking probably, and it's still there.
And if this is referring to the clean energy transition subprogram, you have to wait until the call opens to see exactly what it says.
Yes, that's only on the 11th of May, although I thought it was on the Klima one. So is it possible to send application for technical assistance already in 2023 if our plan is to submit climate first stage proposal no sooner than 2024? So we are talking here about technical assistance for strategic projects, I guess.
Yeah.
The timeline makes sense for me. Cesar, you are one of our experts in this, or used to be, so you still know.
Mm-hmm. So yes, I mean, it in principle, yeah, it's no problem. So you can, because you either present it for the proposal as this what is in what we see in the screen, to prepare well a project, both concept note and then full proposal to apply in the next call, in the call 2024 for a strategic project, or you can be quicker and say, okay, I will use this technical assistance in the 2023 call, not to prepare the concept note because that is too late, but to prepare the full proposal. So there are those two options. Yeah.
And I would add that this is actually the preferable way of doing it. So this is completely normal.
Thank you very much. And then the next one is, so what I'm not managed to take, so that's what incentives are possible to offer within the program for farmers to take measures in order to support implementation. I don't know, would be implementation of what, but
this is maybe coming back a little bit to the same question we had earlier, and maybe I can just mention a couple other things. There is actually the possibility under LIFE to include subsidies to third parties. They're very limited, and if I recall correctly, it's a maximum of 15,000 per ultimate beneficiary, with a total maximum, I think, of 100,000. This must be explicitly indicated in the application, and you must explain in the application how you're going to choose these ultimate beneficiaries who get these subventions. So it's like a small grant scheme. That is one possibility that I didn't mention before that you could put into projects. So look up small grants schemes or subventions to third parties in the call documents.
Thank you very much.
Third-party support. That's how
it's called third-party support. Okay.
Yeah, maybe well, only the amount is a bit higher for the case of a strategic project. Then you have a maximum of 200,000 as total third-party support, and 60,000 per per beneficiary that benefits from that aid maximum.
Yeah, and for SAPs it's 20,000 per party, and it's for a total of 100,000 per project.
Okay, so 20,000. I thought it was 15
yes.
plus 20 then. Very good. Okay.
Thank you very much. We have a little technical glitch, so anything I do on Slido, it doesn't show on the main slide, but I will just read the next question, and we said, so we are now, just tell me because I'm confused, with the third one that you see there, Theo and Fievet, consider the grant X 90% of 250K are working on the application for a few months for a few people. It doesn't add up. Why not the research on your own? To me, this I can't really.
It must be linked to some specific session. And
yes, I think it's something that was related to CET this morning, the 90% probably. And I would like to skip it, but the slides that we see does not react to whatever I do, so I cannot do. I
okay, but maybe we can just make the general comment that, of course, no one's forcing anyone to apply to LIFE or to include certain activities, and all applicants have to, do their own calculations and see if they're interested in applying.
Yes. Now I see that it is slowly reacting to what I'm trying to do, but so maybe we can take what is there as a latest question, because it's probably relevant and two people think that this is true. So it was mentioned several times that LIFE is open to all kinds of projects. Does this mean that it's not always the highest scores in the evaluation which get funding?
I can react to that. When we say it's open to all kinds of projects, what we mean is that for the standard action projects, there is a very large scope of the type of projects which are eligible. But certainly always under each call, it's the ones with the highest scores which will get the funding. The fact that it's open to an idea does not mean it's necessarily going to get a good evaluation nor get funded.
Thank you very much. Then this one we have already replied, the TA. Is there one that you would like to take, any of you? And then we can try to highlight it.
Maybe there is one that could I present a cross-cutting project that falls under two different entries? For example, a project addresses both circular economy and biodiversity. I think my answer, then you can complement if you disagree. I think you need to first choose, again, based on the main output of your project, the main impact, the main areas where your project is impacting. Then, of course, the fact that imagine you are submitting to circular economy, the fact that you are also impacting on other area is an advantage. You get additional recognition in the scoring. You will see, you have a look at their work criteria, this is considered. So you can submitting one and highlight the different impacts that you have, including the fact that you have it's a good thing that you have both a circular economy and biodiversity impacts.
Yes, indeed. And then we can pass to the maybe we again take the latest one on replication project application. They ask if it's can only happen after the official closure of the base project. Anne.
Yeah, indeed, the replication project may not start all the while the previous project is still open. So the absolute deadline is that the previous project must have closed before the new project starts. However, I would say that in order to design a good replication project, you probably are going to have an easier time if it's closed or more or less closed before you write the application, because how are you going to know the final results and all of the final lessons if the project isn't closed?
Yes, indeed. And then maybe we can go to the question from Cornelia. Is a project trying to educate a specific industry in the topic of climate adaptation eligible? Educational tools, awareness raising, building resilience. I guess that this one would be a governance project under climate, and theoretically it sounds eligible. Then it always depends on what are you trying to achieve with this, and where are the climate how you are achieving the climate adaptation goals, and if it fits under the topics. Does anyone have something to with Cesar you wanted to add, or Fabio?
If I can, I mean, and in general for all the governance project, what is important in this case, for example, is that even if you do this type of activity of educational tools, awareness raising, you should have devised in your project a way to monitor if your actions have had any impact on the industries that you are trying to educate. Did they change their behavior? You have to think about surveys after all your activities. This is because, again, life, one of the criteria of life is impact. And you need to try to show that your project may lead to certain impacts, although even if it's a soft one in which you are trying to educate, raise awareness and build resilience.
Yes. Yeah, I was looking now in the call document of the climate adaptation and mitigation, and indeed, as you say, Julia, within the governance part, there is one related to incentivizing behavioral change, mainstreaming emission reduction and resource and energy efficiency actions, and yeah, and it could fit that down there. You have to read it in detail.
Yes, thanks a lot. Cesar, for complementing. I still see this question on indoor air quality monitor from George, so maybe we try to answered this. Is IAQ, indoor air quality monitoring, included? Would this be under CQL air quality? Fabio and Cesar, we need Mario here, but
indeed, I think this is very specific, and
yes,
and I don't understand, is monitoring included? It was probably part of a specific question.
I think it was during his presentation that they posted it, but just two people liked it, so it was not up yet. But I would consider it answered with our efforts, and then if people have still doubts, you know,
they can write. Yeah.
Yes, CNEA live inquiries is also always a possibility, but don't forget about your national contact points and other experienced beneficiary that you might connect with.
So maybe just to
yes.
add, I mean, LIFE does not finance projects that are just doing monitoring.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
if that's the full extent of the project, it would not be eligible.
Yes. So, and then the one from Giovanni Vinti, within the same project proposal, is it possible to cover 2 or more topics, air, water, and soil, and how many subtopics can be covered in total? Fabio, Cesar, would you like to take it?
I mean, yeah, go Cesar this time. Yeah.
No, I mean, well, it's similar to the reply that you provided before. No, I mean, it's if a project is able to provide impacts in more than one area, it was fantastic. But well, you have to think well about reading at the call document also and the priorities and looking at the expected impacts that you expect to achieve. What is your main focus, and try to focus especially on that. But of course, mention in your application, and there are sections in the application where you are asked whether you are providing more than certain synergies with other topics and so on. And well, just explain there all the benefits and impacts that you have. But yeah, look in detail in the call document, where do you fit best? Yeah. Giving your impact.
And if I may say, don't try to show your impact on anything, on all the areas, because then it's can be very confusing, and try to focus. I see that you may have a main area of impact, that's your choice of project topic, but also you will highlight, as Cesar has indicated, that beyond this main impact area, I'm also contributing to this, and that.
And maybe for those that are trying to act strategically behind you, beyond the proposal, Fabio and Cesar, in reality, it's not that you get more points because you pick more topics. So you might get in trouble instead of
exactly the contrary sometimes.
Benefits.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Okay. So
and I would say, maybe just as a general recommendation, when trying to explain, there is a section in the application form about whether how you fit with the topic, with the corresponding topics that are described. We are in general, when we say topic also is when we are really describing in detail, for example, for the case of circular economy and quality of life, for example, within air, then we start to describe topics, let's say, areas, for example, industrial emissions directive, and then it's mentioned, okay, so testing certain technologies, etc., etc. So I mean, you have to go into the detail. You cannot say that, yeah, we are improving the air quality. I mean, you have to be detailed, and you have to read also in detail what are our priorities. Yeah.
Yes, and maybe very relevant to answer is the question from Luisa Marquez. Are the priority topics expected to be the same next year, Anne?
Yes, for the 3 sub-programs, nature and biodiversity, circular economy, quality of life, and climate mitigation and adaptation, the priority topics are set out in the multi-annual work program. So they should be the same for next year. There might be reasons for very slight changes, but basically they'll be the same. For CAT, the topics change each year.
Thanks, Anne. And I see 2 questions that involve prototype. There is a first one that we see there. Is it possible to fund the construction of a new or a prototype of a waste separation plant if we want to prove an innovative method? Fabio, Cesar?
Oh, yeah, so the answer is yes. I mean, if the if indeed you have to show that indeed it's an innovative method and to prove that it will also achieve a certain impact within the project and how it will be sustained afterwards and upscale or replicated, it's fine. I mean, you just just make sure that it's indeed innovative, and preferably if it fits within the waste streams also that we are within our priorities. But yeah, it looks good. Yeah.
Thanks. And then the next one is from Olas Miranda. For projects under circular economy and waste, what is the expected TRL level at the beginning and at the end of the project?
There is no expectation in terms such as TRL. I mean, again, when you look at the way we evaluate the projects, we are looking to impacts. So imagine if you are ending up with a prototype and you are producing 1 kilogram of your recycled waste, certainly you will have an issue with the scoring according to the impacts and the relevance and the value added in terms of this. So the life is open for project that starts a very low TRL and ends up to a very high TRL level, or others that comes already with a proof of concept and a developed pilot that I want to scale up. It's simply there is a rainbow of different possibilities that, but keep in mind always that you are evaluated against a certain number of criteria and you have to answer to those.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so yeah, so regarding what you have to think, what is your expected impact at the end of the project and a few years after, and then also, I mean, typically, I mean, if we would receive a proposal that starts from very initial experimental stage, almost with nothing done before, and you tell us that by the end of the project, within 3 years, you are going to have something in the market, well, that would sound to us a little bit unbelievable. I mean, so you have to justify, especially if you have such a very big progress within a short time, you have to justify it very well, because otherwise we will probably not believe it. Yeah.
Thanks. So yeah, we're really getting close to the end. Is there Fabio and Cesar, any need to answer the?
Maybe we can take the second one there. It's
Thanks.
how many
Yes.
projects from the same organization
Yes.
can access the LIFE funds. The answer is that we do not set any limitation or restriction on this. The only thing is that, of course, you need to have sufficient resources and staff in your organization to be able to implement more than one project at a time in case more than one would win. The other thing is that you should never include the same actions in more than one application.
Okay, thank you very much. There is the catalytic potential question that could be maybe still answered, and then I would say that it's a wrap for the question. So let me read it. How could we justify that the proposal offers an exceptional catalytic potential? Could you recommend us any way of demonstrating it? That's Cesar, you also have a reply to this?
I would say, I mean, probably, for example, an example would be a project that already during the implementation starts to replicate, you know, to provide to implement in other places the solution that it already has demonstrated within the project in one place. So the maturity would be one thing, and then to provide to be specific, I would say, and to show that the ideas and the implementation plan that you have is mature, not to be vague.
Okay.
Key guides. Yeah.
Okay, let's go a little bit beyond the time, because there are some questions that are important and we want to give you our answer. There was one on invasive alien species. So that's the one from Giulia Baldi. The second question, are considered in terms of evaluation projects involving species in the IUCN red list that are unknown for a specific country in the Article 17? Sorry, is this the one on invasive alien species? No.
No, but maybe Laszlo can take both of those two.
Anyway, yes.
Yes, I would say if it's unknown, then it's unlikely to be a priority. Listening, if you go back to the list of priorities for funding that Frank Vassem was presenting, then this would not be among the priorities. That kids can be still eligible, but not a priority.
All right. And then you stay.
And then you have the invasive species. Yes, the answer is yes. They can. It can be addressed by a project.
Of
under
course.
the nature of biodiversity strand.
Yeah, and I think we did everything we could to answer most of the questions that are there. Some were also a bit repetitive. We can close the Slido. You can be sure that we will also have a look again at this question, and all those that we consider particularly relevant that are not answered in the call documents, we will give an answer to them and insert them and include them in our frequently asked question on the website. But those for which an answer is clearly said by the call documents, I'm afraid you need to do
by
your
the
reading
frequently
and
asked
find
questions,
it, or by the already existing frequently asked question. You need to do your homeworks and read yourself. And you want to close with some words because before I go into the technicalities of this?
Well, certainly I'd like to thank everybody who's still listening to us and encourage you to read carefully all the documents and do see how your project idea would fit into the different calls and put together an application. We obviously look forward to having applications, and we know that there are lots of good ideas out there, and we also know that it takes a long time to put together an application. So at the same time, I can wish you courage and perseverance in getting the application completed, and we look forward to seeing what's submitted. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much, Anne, and thank you very much to all the speakers of the 2 days, and especially this last question. It was a joint effort, definitely. If you liked or you want to tell us what you thought about it, you will see on your slide that there is a question asking us about what you think about the usefulness of these sessions, whether we should repeat it or not, basically. So from my side, the main presentation of the EU Info Days are now over, but if you are awaiting the calls for application for the Life Clean Energy Transition, you can already register for the session on June 1st. And of course, we encourage you to make good use of the EU Info Day platform in the B2 Match for networking, the one-to-one meeting, use it to connect with new and experienced life beneficiaries and to seek advice from the registered national contact points. There are already over 200 meeting schedules. I'm monitoring them, I see them, and there are more than 500 pending confirmations. So check your message in the marketplace, give a boost to your life journey by accepting them and see who wants to get in touch with you. Also from my side, the best of luck with your application. And before switching off, I wish to thank all the speakers, of course, all the applicants, potential applicants that stayed with us for these 2 days, and also everyone who helped in the background. So in the last 4 years to make this event what is now, there were some people that were particularly involved, they know who they are, but I would like to name Nadia Lamandas, Natalie Clicquot, Anna Sinbagas, Claire Taylor, Marisa Cabello until a few years ago, Noemi Nefontaine, Diogo Leite, the GOPA and IDL staff, and anyone else that I might be forgetting. Have a lovely evening, everybody, and good luck for your applications, of course. Thank you.